guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to part 2 of the systems deep dive as part of One Book July. This can be a really long video, so I'll leave timestamps and kind of stuff down below in the description as always, as well as like, you know, that little progress bar where you can jump between so you can go to where you want. But today what I'm going to talk about is part 2, which is kind of like the schedule agenda section. So it's going to be a bit long because in addition to that, I'm going to talk to you about it in kind of 3 ways. One is if you're just interested in the One Book July, then I'll show you how I'm doing that in my One Book for July, which is my Passport TN. Then after that, I will talk about it in how I did it in a rings, which I think of as more of like, you know, like a bigger planner where you have more room. It's not as condensed. I'll show you that. So that's the rings. And then as well, in the third part, I will show you how I do it in a digital planner form that I use mostly for work. But yeah, so I thought I would show you kind of everything just to be fully complete, which means it will be probably quite the long video, but you could jump to where you want to go. Okay, so let's get started with just the first book, the One Book July book, and I'll put these away and then we'll go from there. Okay, so in this tiny little guy, it's really small. The Passport TN size, if you guys have tried it, like you can see, like I have big hands, but still, like it's quite the small planner. So I've really had to condense things a little bit here, but my system has been really the same in whatever planner that I'm in. The crux of it is, you know, GTD. That's really the base of it. And I'll link the first deep dive video up here where I talk about that. And that really flows through into all of the rest of my planning, especially my, you know, monthly, weekly, daily planning. So if I go in my One Book, I really tried to keep it really condensed. And so I'm just going to show you quickly here which inserts I'm using. So these are printables. And I obviously, you know, make my own printables. They're in my shop. I'll link everything down below, but you can use this same process system for whatever printables, or if you just use like the booklets, the TN booklets, it can be applied on whatever type of inserts that you use, right? So for me, I wanted to keep it really condensed and slim to be able to fit everything in here. So what I did was I actually bound a few things together, and I will link that video up here about how I bound this book, and you guys can do it too. It's so easy. I'm like a complete beginner newbie, and I was able to do it. And it takes like literally 5 minutes, so I'll link it to that video. But basically, I have here some weekly inserts. So I've printed just enough for the month because I don't know if I'm going to be in here afterwards, and I like to change things up a lot. And that's part of the reason why I actually don't gravitate towards TNs, just because I like to switch it up. But I'm going to try to keep it consistent this month. So I just kept the 4 weeklies in here, and then I have some dailies, just enough dailies for the month. And that's pretty much all I have in here for my, you know, weekly and daily planning. And look how skinny and little that is, right? And I've just bound all those inserts together as one little booklet so that it doesn't take any space. Okay, that's a lot of blabbing about how I use the insert. Now let's talk about the actual system. So again, I've really condensed things down. If you want the long version of this, you know, scroll to later part of this video. It's cheating a little bit because not technically one book, because I do pre-planning in my Hobonichi weeks, and I just find it's easy because I keep it consistent always in this book. So no matter what planner I switch into, and I'm always switching around, I always have the pre-planned plans. Okay, so how I do that is if it's farther out, so basically when it's not that month, so right now we're in July, so anytime any plans come up in August or the future months, I just go into here and I put it in the monthly view, right? And I've always done this, and I'll show you another way that I do it in the personal rings, but I've always done this. I've always put future plans at least a month out in a monthly view, because when plans are further out, you don't have the details. You don't have, like, sometimes you don't even know the time or, you know, where it's going to be or whatever, right? So you only need a teeny amount of space. So I just put it in the monthlies, and then that way I have like this high level overview to easily see what's going on in that month as well in the future. Now, once I get closer to, so when I'm in the month, so for example, in July, if something comes up or I have details about a plan now that it's closer, I'll go into the weekly view. And that's why I like the dated weekly, and also why I like the Hobonichi weeks, because I find it's just the perfect amount of space for pre-planning. Because then if anything comes up or a detail comes up about that event, I will go to the actual week and update it there. Okay? And I've also, like, and the other thing I should mention is migrated everything from the month into kind of the weeklies. Just because once you get closer, you kind of know the details. Sometimes you need to do prep work, especially with kids. Like, you got to plan all the stuff you need to bring, or if you want to get your nails done or whatever, your hair done before. I just write all those details in the week. So when I'm going to do my actual planning, I always know to come to the actual week that I'm in to do the to find the plans, instead of like trying to flip between the two. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the beginning pre-planning level of my plans. Okay, so then from there, if we talk about how do you actually, how do you actually plan? It's easy to talk about the systems, but what do you actually do from a day-to-day? So I have that as my pre-planner. Then the week ahead, this says June, but it should say July. I messed up. Anyway, so then at the beginning of the week, I usually do my planning on the Sunday. What I'll do is I'll go into my spread and I will fill in first all of the plans that I had in my pre-planner. Okay, so I go into here, fill out everything that I have in there. Then the next thing that I will do is I will use my planning routine card, and you don't have to have a card for it necessarily. You could just have a sticky note, your own printout. You could just write it on a piece of paper or wherever, somewhere in your notebook, what your routine is for the week, or as well as the daily routine, and I'll get to that. But I like to have this just because it just makes it easier and one less thing to think about. I know sometimes we think, oh, well, I do my weeklies the same every single week, or I do my daily planning the same, so I don't need this. But what I found is, even though I've been planning for a long time, and I think I'm relatively good at planning or knowing what I do things, sometimes it's like you just forget these little things when you're on the go, and it's always faster just to check a piece of paper than like try to think about it, right? It's another thing in your mind that you have to remember. And I talked about this in the GTD video earlier, the deep dive number 1, is that your brain is meant not for, to be a storage site. It's meant to think, right? So if you clutter it with all this stuff you got to remember, then you can't think as well. So put it down on a piece of paper and, read from there. So I go into here and I then check all the weekly stuff that I do every week. So for example, I always get my groceries delivered on Tuesday. And to the extent that you can, a tip that I have for you guys is things like that, like grocery delivery or whatever, to the extent that you can make it the same day, even getting your nails done or whatever, make it the same day. I think just the routine makes things easier. Your brain knows that that day is associated with that event or whatever. And then, I think it just makes things more productive if you can. So I always do my grocery ordering because I order, online, and then it delivers on the Tuesday, on Thursday. And then I always memory plan on Sunday, and then, kind of the other stuff that I got to do. For example, water your plants, do your meal plan, workouts. I always do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, social stuff, Etsy stuff, whatever. So I go in here and then I fill out kind of those things that I do every single week, and I add it here. Okay, so then what I do is, how does GTD kind of incorporate into this, right? So sometimes I use a GTD weekly that will prompt me, and I'll show you some. I have some in my shop as well. I'll link them down below. It has an inbox section and next actions, waiting on whatever, right? That'll kind of prompt me to check my GTD list. But because I've been using GTD for so long, I kind of, know to instinctively, next step is to go look at my GTD lists. So in my Passport TN, because it's so small, I didn't want to create another booklet for it. And you can, and I have done it in the past, but just to keep it slim, I thought, okay, why don't I just use sticky notes and keep them all in here kind of stacked like this. And I talk more about it in that deep dive video again. Not to keep mentoring it, but it's the crux of my system. And so I have a condensed version of it with just like the 3 layouts, but if you want the full GTD explanation, go there and you'll see all the other layouts related to it. So then I'll go into here and I'll kind of scan through. Is there anything on my inbox that I think I can do, you know, this week, right? And if there is, sorry, this is the week I guess I was looking at. If there is, I'll migrate that into here to say, okay, these are the items from the inbox I want to get done. I'll then look at my waiting on list and see, okay, was there anything that I'm expecting to, you know, get an answer for, a package I'm expecting to be delivered or whatever this week? If so, I will write it kind of, you know, in the general section, or if you have a GTD insert, then I have like a waiting on column and then I would put it in the waiting on column there. Okay. Projects here, you know, projects are so big on like ongoing that, I typically like will know what month I'm working on that project, but you know, I do a quick scan sometimes. And if you follow the true GTD method in the projects, you'll have anything that's more than 2 steps. And so you could add that into your week if you think that that week you have time to do it. Okay. So that's how I incorporate the GTD system into my actual weekly planning. So that's basically that. And then before I go to the daily planning, what I want to talk about is what do I do at the end of the week and how does it relate back to the GTD lists? So at the end of the week, I always come here and check out, you know, make sure that I've checked off all the to-do marks. And if I haven't, and I haven't got it done, and I think you know, I don't think I'm going to do it next week, because if I am going to do it next week, then I'll just migrate it into my pre-planner to say do it next week. And if I'm not going to do it next week and I don't know when I'll get it done, I will migrate it back to my inbox. If it's like a new task that I haven't added onto here, I'll just move it onto the inbox. And if it's an item that was already here, I don't check it off here unless I know it's done. And so then it'll have been unchecked anyways, so it's fine. It's already there. I always do this because I just want a master list of everything that is in my brain that I'm supposed to do, whether it's now, in the future, whatever, okay? So that's how that relates. Then to my dailies. So I used to only be a weekly planner, and then, I don't know, I've just kind of in the past year or so moved into doing daily planning as well, just because I kind of like to do it the night before. It gives me kind of this mental prep for the next day to know what's coming up, and it just jogs my memory. I don't know, because if you just do weekly planning, sometimes I find, oh yeah, I kind of remember what I'm supposed to do next week, and then you get to the day and then you forget something. So I just like to be a bit more prepared, and I've been doing it ahead of time. So the night before, I'll go in and I'll kind of, let me show you, I'll kind of go here, and what I do here is, because I'm using one book for everything, I'll go in here and I kind of mark off when my work meetings are. And how I do that is I just use blue for work, and I just kind of check box in the schedule when the work meetings are. And then I'll do my time specific tasks or events on the schedule, and then add my task and then kind of notes here. And pretty straightforward, right? I've basically copied over, you know, the night before I look at what the next day is, I migrate it over, and then throughout the day I'll add and take things off. So you can kind of see I added some notes throughout the day here. This one I had taken the day off, and so I just printed a little picture on my Perry page printer, which I am obsessed with. I'll link it down below. I've talked about it lots of times on Instagram, on YouTube and whatnot. So that one's that, and it's so easy because you don't feel like you're wasting paper or wasting like those photo papers that are quite expensive. It's like $1 a paper, whereas this is just like a whole roll. It's really inexpensive, and it's just kind of, I don't know, it's fun, but you don't worry about, yeah, like then if I say I don't keep this insert, I don't worry about it. Okay, so that's the dailies in here, and that's pretty much it. And then the other thing that I added in here is a tracker, and this is just from my self-care bundle with Alicia.plans, and I just love this tracker. So I just printed off the tracker and I added it here to kind of monitor like my mood, my period, if I'm doing taking my vitamins, working out, kind of things like that. And then you can kind of see the monthly trend. I'll link that down below as well. But of course, you know, if you're into journaling, or sorry, not journaling, but more self-care related stuff, you could have a separate booklet for that in your, you know, one book or whatever. But just for me, I just, for one book, to keep it simple, if I have any thoughts or memories I want to note, I've just been noting it on my daily insert and calling it a day, just to keep it slim. Okay, so it's pretty streamlined in here. And so now let me talk about a little bit about how I would do it in my rings, which I feel is a bit more unlimited. Very similar process, but let's go there. Okay, so this is my Chloe personal rings from Aura Estelle that I am obsessed with. I'll link the video up here where I talk about how much I'm obsessed with it. And so in here, I kind of have actually two sections for agenda. And so the first section is kind of that pre-planning I was talking about, as well as logging for future references. So let me explain a little bit about that. Okay, so the first thing that I have in here is if you want to use, do pre-planning in here, like in your rings or whatever, instead of a separate book. That's what I was actually doing before I got my Hobonichi Weeks, is I was using this kind of future log insert. This is from a bullet journal bundle in my shop, but I just found this amount of space to be perfect for like future planning, because again, it's just one little line of something that you know, don't know the details about. So I was putting it into here as kind of my future planning. Then before I go into kind of the weekly and the daily and all that stuff, the other addition to what I was doing in my TN is these monthly logs. And what I do here is, this is a post-month thing. So at the end of the month, after the month is over, I never fill these out ahead of time. I go through my weeklies and just see if there was any important events, anything that I want to reference, for example, birthday parties, or, you know, I went to the doctor's, or some major thing that I might want to reference in the future. I pull out and I add into these monthly logs. I love it because it's just the perfect amount of space to just write that little snippet, because you don't want to keep something that's cluttered for reference. Like in the future, when I look back, I don't want to look at, oh, today I watered my plants, or I don't know, I went to the grocery store. I don't care about that stuff, right? So that's why I like it in this form. It's clear, it's concise, and it just keeps really good reference. And then I can get rid of the month's inserts and just have these. So that's the other thing that I do in here. And then two other inserts kind of for planning as well is these perpetual calendars. I like these because, you know, this I use for birthdays, anniversaries, stuff that happens the same day each year. And you can just keep it as reference so that you could reference it year over year, instead of like a pre-planner where you kind of throw it away because it's dated. So I do that. And then I also have one for notes. So for, like, you know, I usually start prepping my daughter's birthdays, you know, a month or two ahead. You buy your Christmas stuff a month or two ahead, all that stuff. I put the notes in this insert. Okay. Again, you don't need these inserts. I'm just telling you about the concept. You could just write it on a piece of paper. It's really the same thing. Okay. So I would say those are kind of the additional steps that I do. Again, when I go back into the kind of monthly, weekly, dailies, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just that here I also kind of have a monthly at the very front that I just write down at the beginning of the month, all the stuff that's happening, because sometimes I like to see like a final monthly view of what's going on for the month. Then same as before, I have my weeklies. I just find with rings, though, you can kind of alternate what types of weeklies that you use, and I do like to change them a lot. But what I'll show you here, if I have an extra insert, is what I meant when I was talking about a GTD insert, to kind of reference what's happening with my GTD lists and how it, you know, can remind you if you're just trying to use GTD or just starting and you need that reference. So, for example, this is my GTD weekly daily bundle or whatever. And so I have an inbox section, next actions, waiting for, and the projects that I'm working on. So if you're using a different types of inserts, you can, if you have these tasks lines, which a lot of inserts do, just write the GTD headers that you need. And so what I would do is I would go into my inbox like I was talking about earlier, and then kind of add in the items from the inbox that I think I could do this week. Additionally, if anything comes up this week that, you know, might be something that I want to do sometime during the week, then I could add it back into here, because at the end of the week, I'll always check this to see if I need to migrate anything back to the original inbox. And then the next thing, okay, so the next line for next actions, for those of you guys who know what that is, basically anything from that next actions list that I know I can start working on, I will add here. Then of course, what I'm waiting on, I'll put here. And then any projects, usually these are like little projects that come up during the week that I might want to add here. This I would call like projects in the GTD form of projects, where it's just anything that, you know, has more than 2 steps. Maybe I would put here. And that's kind of that. And really, the rest of it is this the same way. So I'll do my, you know, weekly planning on the Sunday, and then the night before I do the daily planning. You'll kind of see that these inserts are really the exact same too as what I was using in my Passport TM. But I just like the flexibility in the rings of being able to switch out. You know, if I have a busy day and I need 2 pages, I can do it, you know, day on 2 pages or whatever. So that's really the only kind of difference in this, is having kind of the pre-planning in the back, the perpetual planner, the reference logs at the end of the month. I just find these really, really helpful and a lot more versatile in a rings planner. So that's that. That was actually a lot faster than I thought. And then the last one I'll just quickly show you is the digital planner, and it's really, again, the same concept, but I'll just quickly show you how you could also do it in a digital planner. Okay, so I just pulled out my iPad here. I have my iPad mini, but I also use my iPad Pro, and the app that I use is GoodNotes. I've tried other apps. I've tried using OneNote. Is that what it's called? Just go straight to GoodNotes, okay? Because it really is the best one. And so on a digital planner, again, my system is the exact same, and I'm going to show you 2 ways that you could do this. You could obviously buy a planner, and I'll talk a bit more about that. I'm using, obviously, my GTD planner, but you don't have to use this one. You could get any planner and add things, and I'll show you how it's really easy, or talk about it. I don't want this to be like a tutorial video, but I'll just talk about the process. It's easy to take any digital planner. It doesn't have to be the GTD digital planner, any digital planner, and kind of add the headers that you want. So you could do that. The other thing that you could do is literally like just use a GoodNotes blank notebook. So for example, this just is a free notebook in GoodNotes, so you don't even need to buy anything. And what you can do is just import PDFs. That's what a digital planner is. It's just PDFs. The only thing is things won't be hyperlinked within the PDFs, but like it doesn't really matter because there's other options. Like you could use outlines if you look that up. And what that is basically you're bookmarking different pages that you want to get to, and you can just use that as an easy way to navigate through it. But basically, in this kind of version, you could, you know, GoodNotes has different types of templates. So it has like a weekly template and different types of templates. You could just import, or you can import a blank sheet and draw it out yourself. There's lots of options. Or you can import PDFs that you have. So for example, these are some, you know, PDF inserts that I have, and I just add it in as a page, and that becomes your planner. This is an events one, but you know what I mean by adding your weekly or your daily PDF pages. Okay, so that's super easy. And then of course you could just buy it. And I'm going to walk you through my process using this just because it has the layouts that I need and it'll be easier. Okay, but there's really like quite an inexpensive way to use digital planning. And that's the thing, is like the initial upfront, you know, capital cost, I guess, of the iPads and the iPad pencil and all that stuff might be a bit more, but like, you know, you're really just use the same. You can use the same planner insert over and over. You could erase it easily. Anyways, there's so many benefits. Okay, so same process. You know, everything starts in my, So I have, you know, my GTD section has all those sections we were talked about. Again, when I go into here and I go into, okay, let's say we're in July, right? Here's the month of July. I use a blank planner because I use this for work, and a lot of stuff is kind of sensitive, so I don't want to show you a filled out one. But you could do your pre-planning in the monthlies or whatever if you wanted to, which is what I kind of do for work, is I add in the monthlies in that same fashion. You know, anything that's 1 month or more out, I add it into here, and that's the planning that I do for work. So if I know there's deadlines or whatever, that's what I would do in the monthlies. And then of course, you go into the weeklies, and again, the exact same process, and I use the GTD system for work as well. So here I have some columns, and I think I actually, did I erase that? I can't remember because I was using this as an example, but you know, I have like the different columns. So for example, if I know I'm working on something that week, or I need to get something done for my GTD list, I'll add it into the next actions. If I'm waiting for something specific, I'll add it there. Same concept. You know, on the Sunday, I go into here and I fill everything out. And the great part of GTD, the great part of digital planning is you can integrate different apps, right? So for me, I use Outlook. So here, where is it? So I use Microsoft and then all the Microsoft suite of apps for work. So what I would do is I would go into my Outlook and I would just copy and paste. Sorry, that's the Outlook app. I would just copy and paste my Outlook calendar for the week, and I would paste it into here. And then I kind of have a quick snapshot of my all of my meetings for the week, right? And I can link the video up here where I do a digital plan with me. So I just add it there, and then I don't have to worry about writing it all out. I don't have to worry if my meetings change, because you can just easy copy and paste again into here if there's an updated schedule, right? So that's what I really like about digital planning. And then as well, you could add stickers, you could add whatever. You could do more of that like decorative stuff that I just find a bit quicker, easier, more resources, cheaper on an digital planner. But back to the system. So the exact same thing, I do that the night before, and then the Sunday before. Then the night before, I go into the dailies, and again, I plan for the dailies. So again, super easy. What I do is I go into my daily view on my Outlook and I paste my agenda for the week, usually that morning of, because my meetings sometimes change even the night before. And then I kind of paste a picture here, and then I still have lots of room to write everywhere else. Same system, just a different device, right? And the good thing about this, you could easily like jump to the month to kind of view what you need for the month. You can easily, you know, jump to your sections, and that's kind of the benefit of having like a pre-made planner for you than like creating your own. But of course, it's all possible. So let me just show you. If you had your own, what you can do is add favorites and outlines, and then it'll show up here as like a flagged page, and you can easily navigate to those pages if you were just doing it by hand, you know, from a notebook for free. Okay, so that's kind of the system there. And yeah, I guess that's basically it. I'm just trying to think. I think I covered everything. And then next week, so that was deep dive 2. Next week, I think I will probably cover part 3, which I'm going to talk about projects. I think those were kind of the top 3 meaty sections. So 1 being the GTD section, 2 being this agenda schedule stuff, and then 3 being like major projects. So I'm going to be talking about it in the non-GTD sense, in like big projects, like how do I plan for my daughter's birthday? How do I plan for a big trip with kids? All that kind of stuff I will talk in the next video. Okay, so if you guys want to watch, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell when it comes out, and let me know if this system resonates with you and what more you would like to see. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye!